morning and welcome to Issues That Matter. My name is Robert Pecconi. I'm host of the show of Issues That Matter, and we have a special guest today, a special show today, and we're going to be speaking today of Asperger's syndrome, and we have the author of the book, Bad Choices Make Good Stories, Dylan Volk.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
to have you. And his sister Mariah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, I am not a big reader. I was never, I would say, the brightest light bulb in the box. And rarely did I ever pick up a book and read it quickly, but voraciously. But I will say this: the Bad Choices Make Good Stories. It grabbed me, and it held me. It held my interest, and I was able to complete the book in a very reasonable amount of time instead of a couple of years. But I want to congratulate you on the book, which leads me to my first question. And my first question is, how can a person get a copy of this book?
They're going to go to badchoicesmakegoodstories.com. Pretty easy.
Okay, well, for most people I would say so, but for people like me, not so much. But in any event, and Mariah,
Yes.
now, in addition to the fact that I have a sister who's exactly 10 years older than me, whose name is Maria,
Yeah.
what impact, you have an older brother with Asperger's syndrome, which, to my way of thinking and with limited knowledge that I have, it's almost like people with Asperger's syndrome have an advantage over so many other people. And I say that, and I look at MS in the same fashion. It can be looked at as a challenge, or it can be looked at as a blessing.
You said MS?
Too.
MS?
MS.
Like
multiple sclerosis.
MS-13 or
It's me.
MS-13, the gang?
No.
What's MS?
No, multiple sclerosis.
Oh.
Disease.
Oh, same thing.
And in my case, it's been a blessing.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Does it offer challenges? Yes, it certainly does offer challenges. But one of the philosophies that I've developed over the years, and I did not come up with it myself. I read about it. Circumstances do not cause issues. Circumstances do not cause problems. It's reaction to the circumstance that causes the problem. And a lot of that depends on your perspective on life.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that you have a perspective on life that is not all that common out there.
No, that's absolutely accurate.
Is that what you gathered from reading the book?
But that can certainly serve as an advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways
I
it
think
can.
you have an insight into life that other people don't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll get into that as the show goes. moves on.
Yeah.
Mariah,
Yeah.
you have an older brother who's a little bit older than you. What impact that he had on his education, during his education, did that have on how you were treated in the same system?
I mean, I would say I was treated fine in the school system. I mean, I feel like the teachers were able to, they knew who I was. It was very obvious who I was from the start of my school years, just because the Scarborough school system is not very big, and so they knew him very well. So they knew who I was and knew my family. But I mean, they treated me fine in the school system. I think for me, going into high school especially, I was a little more uncomfortable because of how they had treated him in middle school and how they, the issues that he had been having in high school before I got there. So I was a little nervous as to what the teachers might think of me, starting a new school. But I quickly, gained my own personality in high school and was able to, branch off and do my own things. But we had a lot, when we went to school together in high school, he was a senior and I was a sophomore. And that still to this day is one of my favorite years of high school because, he he would have lots of adventures with me after school because he would drive me. So it was really entertaining.
Dylan, why did that comment that Mariah just made bring a smile to your face?
That was a good time of my life. That was when things were kind of going well, which is kind of rare for me in my life. I remember that year, I remember thinking, wow, this is unusual. Things are actually going well. And it's nice that I was actually kind of popular in a way. I was popular in school, but not really outside of school. But I was like, I'll take it. At least I'm semi-popular. People knew me. I was very infamous, and people thought I was very funny, and people would like yell my name down the hall when they saw me because I was just the kind of class clown kind of character. I was this guy who everybody laughed at and thought was funny. They didn't hang out with me on the weekends, but they liked me in school, so I was like, I'll take it.
One time he made this flyer, this poster that said, what did it say? It was some line from a song. It was like
it was.
Ride,
I called it Ride or Die Services.
Ride or Die Services. And he was like a taxi service that he was giving out rides
I was like
at
the
school.
original Uber. I just put up a sign because I was giving a lot of people rides for gas money, and it would always be way more gas money than it took. So I just thought, let's make a business out of it.
Yeah, it was very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But he posted these flyers all over the high school, like everywhere, and it was him holding these keys on his finger and pointing.
I was
it
holding
out
the
like
keys in
this,
my mouth.
and holding it in his mouth. He had two different ones.
Yeah.
And he posted it all over the school. And I remember kids in my grade came up to me and they were like, yo, did you see what your brother did? Like, he posted these flyers all over the school. And I remember specifically one kid was like, what do you think about that? Like, is that weird for you? Like, your brother is literally famous at our high school now for doing this. And I was like, you know what? I think it's hilarious. And I think it's so funny, and I'm not embarrassed or anything. It was one of my most memorable memories.
In a sense, Dylan broke down a barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. And I think and in looking at this big picture, I think you carry qualities that society in general needs more of. Your lack of concern over the social acceptance, you might say. We become, as a society, too conscious of social norms. We're too easily offended.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
your view of things looks to me to be much more in line with the way society should be, where we're not as concerned about offending people. I think the social norms have become too constrictive.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what he's taught me throughout our childhood and life is I'm now very not easily offended at all. Basically, nothing offends me and nothing embarrasses me. And my friends would say that about me. My family members say that about me, and my sisters as well. Like, we're not easily embarrassed. And I think that's one of my favorite qualities about myself, and something that is 100% because of him.
Well, I don't want to give your parents a big head, but I think your parents did a heck of a good job.
Oh, well,
in raising
absolutely, that too.
Okay. No. There. Okay. In the book, I would say, I don't know whether you raised a question, but you did talk about normalcy.
Yeah.
Speak about that for a little while, a bit.
A lot of people don't like the word normal. I was just giving my book to someone the other day, and they saw the chapter entitled, Is There a Normal? And they said, oh, I don't like that word normal. And I said, oh, I think you're going to be surprised by my take in this chapter, because I embrace the word normal, and I say that there absolutely is a such thing as normal. People say, well, but we're all weird. We're all weird in our own way. We all have our own differences, our own things. And I say, well, that's not really true, because everyone has weird quirks, but most people fall within the range of what society considers normal, and then there's people that fall outside that range. and I fall outside that range. People with autism fall far outside that range. And so when you say there's no such thing as normal, it really devalues the struggle I've gone through every day of my life, because you're saying that it's not any different than anyone else's, and it is.
And I would totally subscribe to your thought. I would just add one addendum, and that is that possibly the issue is not necessarily your lack of normalcy. It's the constriction that society has placed on the word normal. They look at it at a very narrow view, and anything outside of that view is considered to be abnormal. And I think that's too narrow a view.
Maybe.
We'll never know. We'll never know. I may be whistling into the wind.
But there's I don't think there's any problem with aspiring to be normal and wanting to be normal.
I would agree with you. I would agree with that. As long as there's a limit as to how much frustration you need to endure, or you are willing to endure in order to achieve that normalcy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
First thing I said that made sense today. Sometimes what comes first in life is not at all representative of the challenges that are yet to come. You speak about that in the book.
Yeah.
Speak about that for a little bit.
Well, it's the chapter called Save the Best for First. And I wrote about how a lot of times something really great will happen. A friend, or mostly I was talking about friends. And then it turns out that thing was actually not representative of the road that lies ahead. It was actually an anomaly, but it just happened to come first. And so you had every reason to expect, well, the rest of my life is going to be filled with things like X. But it turns out X was really an anomaly, and then the rest of your life, you look back and you realize, oh wow, that was actually really unusual, but it just happened first. So, like for instance, I had a best friend in kindergarten, and he lived right down the street from me, and we used to hang out every day, and we were actual, like, legitimate best friends. But then that never happened again. And so the rest of my life, I thought, well, early in life, I certainly thought I would find another person. His name was Jack. I thought I'll find another Jack. And then a year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by, and I realized, oh no, this is what life is going to be like. Jack is not what life is going to be like.
Okay.
Meaning kids in the neighborhood not including me in their activities, riding their bikes past my house, not knocking on my door, hanging out right in front of my house, not inviting me to come over. Having their moms invite me over because the moms always loved me, but not
the
them.
moms had good taste.
Yeah, the mom said, why don't you ask Dylan what he would like to do? Why don't you invite Dylan? But it didn't matter. The kids were not on the same page, and so it would have been great if it was the other way around, right? Like all the kids loved me and the moms hated me. that would have been fine, because screw the moms. But no.
How do you handle that?
Badly. How do you handle that? It's bad. It's just bad. There's no good. There's no way.
How did you get through it?
I suffered. It was painful. There was no fun way. There's no good spin you can put on that, because no matter what anybody can tell you, that is bad. When people are not including you, there's no good spin to put on that. That means they don't want you.
Okay. But I think what's so inspiring about Dylan is that, like, despite the fact that friendship after friendship didn't work out, or like circumstance after circumstance went wrong for him, he still tries like so hard and puts himself out there and is bold and is courageous to approach people and talk to people, and like he gets up and he does it every day, and it's very inspiring, knowing the hardship, and I can't imagine dealing with that. And so seeing him and seeing his ability to just like bounce back and keep going and doing it and writing a book and, you know, going around the country talking about his book. And, you know, it's inspiring for me to see that.
And I can understand why. And as I mentioned earlier, before the tape started to run, it's not. Life is full of circumstances. Some of the circumstances are good. Some of the circumstances are not good. The circumstance you're faced with certainly is not a good one. But the true measure of the person is not the circumstance. The true measure of the person is how they stood up to that circumstance, how they dealt with it. And when I look at the way you've dealt with it and what you have accomplished, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing, and it's something that you should be very, very proud of, as I'm sure your family is very, very proud of. And
Well,
I'm proud
I
to even get to know you.
Yeah.
You're blushing.
I haven't really accomplished much. I mean, I didn't pay for the book.
That all depends on what you're looking to accomplish.
Well, self-sufficiency
You
would
wanted
be
to write a book.
independence.
And you wanted to write a book, and you wrote one heck of a good book.
Well, I appreciate it. The content inside is a valid point. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you appreciate it.
Yes, yeah. If you're complimenting, here's the thing. If you're complimenting here, meaning not my fingers are not on the cover. My fingers are on the inside
Right.
of the book.
Okay.
That's a valid compliment. When you compliment here, not valid compliment because I didn't pay for that. So valid, not valid. A lot of times people compliment me just for the fact that I wrote a book, and that is like not a valid. I have to shut up usually, and I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh, thank you.
It's not a
But
pref-
if people compliment actually what's in the book, then it's like, oh, I appreciate that.
My following comment is not a preface because the preface comes before. My following comment now is, I read your book.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes
My comments about your book is not based on what's on the cover.
No, I'm not
What's
saying
on the
you.
back.
Sometimes people, I will try and ask them, I'll try and fish, subtly fish for a compliment about the actual contents of the book, but instead they'll say, well, I just think it's great that you wrote a book. It's like, oh, yeah.
Well, what I enjoy, one of the things that I've enjoyed, I enjoyed a number of aspects about the book. One of the things that I enjoyed about it immensely is your honesty.
Yes, thank you.
You painted some pictures that were not necessarily all that favorable to you.
Yeah.
But you painted them well, and you gave people a good understanding of what motivated you to do what it is that you did. And that's one of the things that impressed me about the book.
It's also the first book with emojis. You notice those?
First book with emojis.
First book with
As the smiley faces. The emojis.
the emoticons,
Emoticons.
Yeah, emoticons.
which I've never been able to figure out how to use emoticons.
Oh, okay.
That's one of my shortcomings in life.
Oh yeah. Well, you gotta learn from Dylan. He's good at emoticons.
Where do you see your future taking you?
Well, I would love to either be a talk show host or maybe a reality show star. I think a reality show based on my life would blow the Kardashians out of the water.
100%. It'd be way more
Then-
entertaining.
Then I have a suggestion for you. We have a person sitting in the back in the control room who's always looking for people to host shows. So why don't we put you in touch with him, and maybe you can get a show on Biddeford Public Access.
He would have to move back to Biddeford. And
Yeah,
I don't know if he wants to move from LA to Biddeford. That's
Why?
well, he likes the sun.
It would be
Let's
global
just say that.
exposure.
Yeah.
True.
Now, Matt, one of the things that we could consider is every so often maybe having you come on as a guest host.
Yeah. Is the pay good?
That all depends on what you consider to be the payment. If you look for
A living wage.
if you're looking for monetary, forget about it.
Oh, okay.
Not in the cards. I don't get paid. This is strictly volunteer, but it can be a good jumping off point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've already had lots of those jumping off points, and I'm still not jumped off. So,
I always say, like, if I think at one point somebody in the big media world is going to get a wind of these two books. I think that it's bound to happen eventually, and I'm praying that it happens, because I think that if it did, it'd be sensational. Like, it would just
well, the thing is,
spark
though,
a fire.
the thing is, though, it's time sensitive. So, like, if it doesn't happen in the next year, that's it, because the book has to happen when it's fresh. So it can't
Yeah.
happen for a book that's 4 or 5 years old. So we're on a timer here.
Well, if
We're on a countdown.
I would say if you're talking about a book that comes out and is a bestseller, I would subscribe to your theory. However, talking about a book that is not necessarily out there in a major league fashion, you might say, I think the impact of time is nowhere near as significant.
I was told differently. I was told by a professional PR person, you don't want to let it sit. You got to strike while it's hot. The longer the book has been out, the harder it gets.
So that being said, buy the book, people. Spread it to your friends.
I would agree with you. What's going on with this thing? I turned it off.
I can help you if you want. Is that an Android?
Yes,
I can shut it off if you want.
I thought I did. I'll get it. Power off. Okay.
That does it.
I did that once before. It keeps on coming back on. I don't know. In any event, we'll move on. If there was one thing that you wanted to get across today, what would that one thing be?
Me?
Yes.
Probably just how amazing I think my brother is for the book, how amazing I think my dad is for the book, how proud I am of what he's accomplished in it, his bravery, and that people should read it and stop, for lack of a better word, BSing around and pretending like, you know, they've read it or they know about it because they've heard about it or they see it on social media. People really need to actually take the time. It's not long. Like, just take the time and read it. Do us a favor, and you'll learn something from it and you'll grow from it. And I think that people underestimate the power that it can have on their life.
I've also got the audiobook coming out. You said that you're not a big reader. I'm not a big reader either. I like to listen to things, so I have recorded personally the audiobook. And I've got, by the time this airs, that'll be out on Audible, or Amazon. Bad Choices Make Good Stories, My Life with Autism. And I've personally narrated the whole thing.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
What gives you the energy to do that?
Because I felt bad trying to push people to read a book when I don't even like to read books. So I had to be able to say, if you don't want to read it, here's the audiobook. Now put the pressure.
And a lot of people in our generation too, like when they're driving, they listen to things rather than read books. Like, I feel like millennials don't read a lot. So
Yeah.
people oftentimes listen to stuff while they're driving. And so I think that if people see it, and again, you got to really just take the plunge and just get into it. People read the dumbest stuff about, like he said, like the Kardashians and stupid stuff about random, just people walking around their rich homes. And this is something that actually has meaning and value and purpose and hope, and yet, like, nobody, is reading it on a big level.
I hear you, and I think people very much, and I would suspect one of the things that would be undervalued in this book is the level of honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing fake about it. The fakeness is a problem in our world. People pretending everything's fine. That is not this. This is the most genuine and real book you'll read. So that's absolutely something that's important too.
Now, how does it make you feel to have a sister who is so adamant in support?
Good. Family is important.
I mean, that must make you feel wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I would venture to say that the degree of wonderfulness, if that's a word, the degree of wonderfulness is probably tempered by the fact that this is what you are accustomed to.
Yeah, yeah. It's too bad that you never seem to know what you have till it's gone.
But you bring to life qualities that are very much undervalued in society today.
Yeah, thank you.
Your honesty, your what many would perceive as being a major drawback. I can look at it and say we need more of that. We need more things said without going through that socially acceptable filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, what you have and what you do is actually beneficial to society at large. And that's my view of it. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's their problem, not mine.
Well, he says things that people are thinking and too afraid to say. And I think that, or too nervous of how society will react to it. Whereas he doesn't care how society reacts. So he just unapologetically himself in the book and says things that, that's why there's a explicit language in the book.
and that speaks to the value of your honesty.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something that I sometimes I open my mouth too much. But that speaks to a quality that is terribly lacking in our society today. Mm-hmm. And to have someone who speaks with that honesty and accomplishes something as significant. Now you might not think it's that significant. If I tried to write a book, it didn't work out. Did not work out well at all. So I've tried to go down the road that you went down. I was an abject failure. I never got the book written.
All right. I mean, I probably would have been too, though, if it wasn't for other people pressuring me.
Other people's influence certainly is a factor.
Yeah.
But it just amazes me. It amazes me, and it also tells me that this is a wake-up call to society at large. We've got to, you might say, reevaluate our position on things, and we have to start appreciating things that are out there that have been not just devalued but have been scorned in the past. And in today's world, we seem to be admiring all the wrong things.
Yep.
Now I know we've gone kind of far afield.
We're getting real.
Let me see if I get back. Let me see if I can get us back on in the right field. You might say. Now it's age.
I actually had a comment I was going to make there, but it would have been not good for TV. So you see, I do have a little bit of a filter sometimes.
So further explain that.
No, it's not something I should be saying on TV, so I can't. But my filter, you mean? Oh, well, if you met me 10 years ago, you really would have seen what no filter looks like. I have somewhat of a filter now. I think I have an appropriate filter now, which is not too much, but just the bare minimum.
Okay, so you're less apt, if I understand you correctly, you're less apt to come out with something that would totally blow somebody's doors off.
Or blow my career off, yeah.
Blowing your career off is a function of the blowing doors off.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's less apt than it happened now.
Right.
Now you have a clear understanding of what is acceptable in the social norm.
Yeah, I know how to straddle the line.
It's an amazing thing.
I abuse the line.
I like to walk the fence.
Yes, yeah.
But when you walk the fence or when you straddle the line.
Could you hold on a second, because your mic cut out on you. I think you stretched the cord. Hang on a minute, Steve will be right in.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Where's Steve? I guess I'll just go on with the show. Now, where was I?
He's coming.
Oh, here he comes.
The difference, Dylan, the difference between your book, Time Sensitive, and others is the constant people being diagnosed with autism. I mean, J.K. Rowling's, she had Harry Potter printed 7 years before anybody picked up on it.
I mean, but certainly there's a factor of likelihood there, and the likelihood of it going big goes down in time, right?
You got to break through the ceiling.
The likelihood of breaking through the ceiling, the more time it sits, the less chance. Not impossible, but less possible.
I don't know, because if
You
you're
also have more time to build a funnel, and if you build a big enough funnel, eventually.
yeah,
something
that's what
might
I was
fall
gonna
through.
say.
Whereas in a short time, you can only build so much.
But can you really go big with a book that came out 2-3 years ago?
Wallet. Grab Bob's wallet.
Grabs Bob.
That lady at 50 Shades of Grey was
Did I
standing
do
on the
something
back
wrong?
of her car,
Yeah, you don't sit up straight.
like stairs and
I what?
That's it, Dylan, we need more sex.
And she's really weird. That lady is weird.
Was my thought. I worked in a school at med tech for 18 years. And
Is that okay, Steve?
would be good. We have so much
Bob, just get
autism.
on us quick.
Talk to him. Give him a count.
Okay. Hello?
Good school.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah.
He loves speaking in front of schools, actually.
Bob,
He's
I'm
kind
gonna
of
get
cute.
a tight shot of you, and you can pick up the conversation when you're ready.
Okay. All right. So, where do we go from here?
We were talking about straddling the line or the fence.
Right. But where do you go from here? Where do you go in your life journey?
Like I said, I would like to either be a talk show personality or a reality show subject.
Okay. How do you think you can get there?
Well, I'm in LA, so I'm in the optimal place for that to happen.
What brought you to LA?
Well, for that reason, it's the optimal place for making connections. It's all about who you know, and if you don't live in LA, you don't know anybody. So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made in life, was not going to LA a long time ago, wasting years going from state to state, just spinning my wheels, idling. But I'm there now.
What do you see as the steps that you need to take?
Well, the steps are just kind of grinding and then hoping something eventually happens. If you're in the vicinity of people, it's like the likelihood of something not eventually happening is pretty low. If you have what it takes, which I believe I do.
Okay. I am by far not the last word in this. I am by far probably not even qualified to be speaking of as somebody who has a valid voice in this word. But I look at it and I say, you got what it takes.
Thank you.
You've got qualities that successful people are built upon, and one of them is guts, courage, and commitment. And with those qualities and your persistence, I see it. And I am by far the last word on this. By far, I'm the last word on this. But I see a bright future. I see a good future. And I see a future that's going to be beneficial to a good number of people.
Yeah, you know, a few years ago, I'm sure you read about in the book, I was featured on a national radio program hosted by Lance Bass.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
You read about it?
Yes.
Yeah, so if I was in Los Angeles at the time where he lived, you know, I could have been going over to his house. He did the show out of his house. They would have had me over there who knows how often. I could have been meeting other people in his vicinity. I mean, picture a scenario where there's some other celebrity guest there and I'm there doing something, segment or something I produced, and he's like, oh, Dylan, this is X. X, this is Dylan. He does this, this, this for me. And then they say, oh, wow, you could come do this, this, this for me. I'll give you my info. Here's my number, blah, blah, blah. But instead, I was 1,000 miles away in Texas. And so I view that as just a giant wasted opportunity. Because if I had been in LA physically when I was being featured on this guy's show, he was having me on his show every single week. They would spend hours dedicated to talking about me. So if I was right down the street from him, you know, who knows what could have happened.
You'll probably never know.
I think it's pretty safe to assume that it would have been a good chance.
It might have been a good opportunity,
Oh yeah.
but I
The
would
past
not,
is the past.
But it's the past. And the past does not necessarily dictate what the future is going to be.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about that because it's in the book. So yeah.
Well, I think you've got a story to tell. You've got a valuable story to tell, and your book is an excellent way to get that message out there. So I would strongly encourage people to buy the book. You will not regret it.
Thank you.
I'm not going to give this book away. I'm going to hold on to this book, and I will use it as a reference point.
Awesome.
And I will speak about it openly and freely, and I will highly recommend it. I'm going to ask you at least one more question, and that question is: if there's one message that you want to get out there to the people, outside of buy the book, what message would that be?
I would say don't ever hear cliches the same way again. So if next time you hear a cliche, which is something that has been repeated by many different people, and you hear someone else repeating it, I would say question the person. Make them
Give me an
rethink.
example.
Like there's no such thing as normal, or just be yourself. That's another one I talk about in the book. I think the phrase just be yourself is ridiculous because not everybody can do that and just succeed. And it seems to imply that there's nothing you need to change, no filter needed, and you'll be good. But you know, that my life has shown me that that's not the case. I needed to adjust myself. I needed to evolve myself
Yep.
before I could just be it. And another one is, you know, guys just want sex, or girls just want a fairy tale romance. That's just BS.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel? Let me ask you the same question.
Sure.
The question I just asked him, that he just covered. What are your thoughts on that? What if there's one message you would like to get out there for people to hear and understand? What would that message be?
I think, well, like I said, just like taking the time to read the book and really dedicating themselves to that, you know, the 3 hours that it will take you to get through it, or not even. But also to, you know, be critical of the way that society views things, to not take things as offensive to yourselves, be a little more lighthearted about things. Don't get so bogged down in what people will think of you, what society thinks of you. Be honest with, you know, talking to other people and expressing what is actually going on in your life rather than sugarcoating it with all this fake nonsense. I think that there's, you know, being fake is one of the biggest problems that our society has, especially in our generation. And so I think one of the biggest things that the book and what Dylan has taught me is don't be fake. Like, you know, even when he is not being himself, quote unquote, or is, you know, being molded, he's always real. He's always, you know, he's always telling you what he thinks about a certain situation, or even if it's not directly exactly what he thinks, he's twisting it in a way that's more appropriate, maybe. He still is telling you what he thinks about something. Authenticity, you know, he's very authentic in the book. He tells exactly how it is, isn't, you know, just saying something like a cliche. He says exactly how it is in real life and how things really are. And I
That-
think
that
that's
speaks to
a
his
quality.
honesty.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's just something that people need to be a little more critical of in themselves as well as in others.
I have a word of caution for you. You are agreeing with me. And in many quarters, that would not be a good thing. But it is a quality that is so lacking today. And we need to get a better handle on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have a very troubling future ahead. So for your contribution to getting to, on that march, you might say, for your contribution to making those corrections, I want to thank you very much. And I want to wish you the best of luck
All right. Thank
in
you.
your quest. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. I'm glad you enjoyed the
you.
book.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been great to meet you.
And one of the things that I often, not quite as religiously as I once did, one of the things that I close the show with, I am not a fan of one and done. So if ever the occasion comes about and you're back in this area again, I would look forward to having you on as a guest again.
All right.
Same for you.
Thank you.
And I think your dad already knows my feelings on that with him. Don't you? And getting your mom on as a guest would be a real good ace in the hole.
Yeah, or even my sisters too.
Or your
We have
sisters.
2 younger sisters
We
that
can make this
have
a-
a lot to say.
We can make this a family affair.
Yeah.
I would look forward to it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And folks, I think that's a wrap. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Hopefully it'll be a sunshiny one. Although earlier on today it didn't look like it was going to be that way. In any event, have a great day. Bye-bye.